Hello, drawing and painting. So let me show you how to do the color grid. I'm going to do this one in acrylic, and then I will also make a video for the watercolor one. So if you're doing this at home, you will need to make just like 4 individual color grids. The grids need to be 3 by 5. So the point of these is to slowly combine 2 colors and then add white as you go over, or gray or black. And it wasn't until I started doing these, or that I should say, it wasn't until I learned how to do these that I began to actually understand how to paint and how colors really worked with one another. Because you learn a lot about color strength and color mixing, and you'll probably end up mixing some colors that surprise you. So, you're going to start by mixing 2 different colors, color 1, color 2. But when you're mixing these colors, you're going to want to mix 5 individual little sections of colors. So I guess first off, I should probably mix my colors. When I'm doing these, I don't like to pick colors that I know what will happen. For instance, if I pick a color 1, so for my color 1, if I pick a yellow, and for my color 2, if I pick a blue, if I slowly combine those 2 colors, I know it's going to end up being green. This is dumb. Don't do this. You know that yellow and blue make green. Don't do things that you know how they end up. You will learn nothing from these if you do that. So, I usually like to mix ugly colors because I don't know how ugly colors are going to turn out. It always surprises me. So, for color 1, and you're going to want to mix up a sizable chunk of this. This is so that, because you'll need to mix 5 separate colors. You have 5 colors total here that you'll need to mix, so you need to have enough paint to mix those colors. So for my color 1, I think I'm going to mix kind of like a violet. So I'm using an alizarin crimson, and then I am going to mix that with a phthalo blue. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint that in my color 1 section while it's on my brush. Remember, when you're painting, only use pulling motions. Never push the brush. Only pull it. It's not a broom. And if you push it, you're going to lose control. You're going to splay the bristles. Don't do that. So I have that. So now what I'm going to do, since I know that I need 4 chunks of color that involve color 1. So I have color 1 little 2, 50-50 blend, and color 2 a little bit of 1. Like I said, hold on. I'm going to section out 2 other sections of color 1. So I can have color 1 by itself. I need to have one that will be color 1 with a little bit of color 2 added. And then I'll need a 50-50 blend. So I'm giving myself actual room to do this. So I have those. So now I'm going to, I can just grab a little bit of a dab, a little tiny chunk of color for my color 2 little 1. So I'm going to clean my brush. And then I'm going to paint in my color 2. So for color 2, it can be mixed color or another color. I think I'm just going to use straight burnt sienna, which is this color that I have here. So I'm going to paint burnt sienna in my color 2. Because I don't really know what kind of like a cool violet and this warm brownish red, I don't know what colors those are going to make together. So I'm using colors that I can't easily predict the outcome. Okay, so I have that. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of create my other colors. So I'm going to take a chunk of my burnt sienna. I'm going to set that off to the side. So I can have my color 2 with a little, oh sorry, whoop, I didn't need to do that. My bad. So move this over here. So I'm going to have my color 2 with a little bit of 1 added. 50-50 blend, so just kind of eyeball the quantity. Try to get it about even. And then my color 1 with a little bit of 2 added. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix these together. And then I'll paint that on. And sometimes you'll see a big difference, sometimes you won't. That's okay. If you don't see a big difference, that is okay. It just means that one pigment is a lot stronger than the other. And I don't, like for these, I don't think I'm gonna clean my brush in between. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mix up my 50-50 blend. And for this last one, I think I will clean off my brush. And then I'll mix up my color 2 with a little bit of, or color 1 with a little bit of 2 added. And so what I'm seeing here is that my color 1, my alizarin crimson and phthalo blue, is a lot weaker than my burnt sienna. Because from color 2 to 50-50, there's not much change. Which means, like, I mean, there's a little bit of change here and here, but color 1 didn't really affect color 2 at all. 50-50 blend is still primarily a brown. And then there's a bigger difference between color 1 and color 1 little 2 than there is between color 2 and color 2 with a little bit of 1. So I just learned that the burnt sienna is stronger. I didn't know that before. Oh, and I also do recommend writing down the colors that you use. This is not like mandatory, but I always write down the colors that I use just in case I mix something cool and I want to remember how I did it, because I don't trust my memory to last forever, because it won't. So up here I'm just going to write alizarin crimson, plus phthalo blue, and then down here I'm just going to write burnt sienna. Okay, and now that I have all of my 5 individual colors mixed, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now I can just easily go across the row. So I'm going to take my color 1, which is this one, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of white. So for color 1, with a little bit of white added. I've personally found over time that white affects darker colors much more quickly than it affects lighter colors. So it takes a lot of white to affect yellow, but it does not take a lot of white to affect like a violet or a blue or a black. And then just so I can get that 50-50, I'm just gonna take another like chunk of white. And this is ish, it's not like an exact science for the 50-50 blend. I'm gonna go ahead and mix that up. And then paint that in. And then clean my brush. Okay, so now my next one. My color 2 with a little bit, or color 1 with a little bit 2 added. So same thing. I'm gonna start off by adding just a little bit of white, just a little bit, mixing that in. And with white, when you add white, that's when you're gonna actually start to see the big color differences. White is how you truly, if you add white to something, that's how you truly know what the color is. For instance, if you're mixing your own black, the only way to tell if it's truly black is to add white to it. That's where you will learn if it's actually purple or green or blue, because sometimes those colors, until you add white to them, look like they're black, but they're actually not. So you got that. Then I'm just gonna add like another little chunk of white here. Clean off my brush in between. And next onto my 50-50 blend. So start with a little bit of white. And when you're doing like the little bit of color 1, little bit of color 2, little bit of white, whatever, it doesn't really matter how much white you're using as long as it's less than the quantity of pigment that you have. So as long as I'm using less of color 1 than I am of 2, that's okay. As long as you're using less of white than you have of your mixed color, that's okay. I'm not looking for like, oh, they only use like 1 millimeter of this white. I can't measure that. Like, it's just eyeball it. But basically you want to see a progression. I did not know it was going to be that color. Oh, I didn't need to clean my brushes just then. Biscuits. Alright, and then for like my burnt sienna one over here, I have so much of this color that I don't want to waste my time mixing white into my burnt sienna. So if ever you have like a large quantity of color but you don't need a lot of that color, just take a section of it out so you're not wasting your time mixing a bunch of paint and wasting paint. You know, work smarter, not harder. I do not need to waste a bunch of white trying to add it to a large chunk of burnt sienna when I don't need a large chunk of mixed burnt sienna. That's just dumb. All right, and then that one's done. So I want you to use different colors for each grid set, but let's say like if you mixed up a color and you really liked it and you wanted to combine that with another color, that's fine. So you could use, like, if I really like this purple, I could use that purple again here, but I want to mix it with a different color. So for instance, like I really like my color 1 plus white. I think that's really pretty. So I'm gonna use that for this one, but I'm gonna mix it with my lemon yellow for next time. Actually, I'm gonna add more white to it just so it's a little bit more, I'm just gonna mix up a little bit more of that color. Ooh, actually is prettier than I thought before. It's like really pretty, like lilac color. All right, so I'm gonna clean up my water And I'm gonna time lapse for this one, so it's gonna go by faster, but it's the exact same process. And then I'll slow down and actually walk through the one where we add gray and black. It'll be the same process for all of these, except for this one, instead of, actually, you know, I'll just probably time lapse it because instead of adding white, you just add gray to it. What kind of gray? I don't care. If you want it to be a dark gray, that's fine. If you want it to be a light gray, that's fine, as long as it's somewhere in the spectrum of gray. And for this one, just black. So I'm gonna time lapse through these, so you'll still be able to see how I do it. But you know, it just won't be the entire thing. All right, and there you have it, the completed color grid. So I have my two where I had my mixed colors, and I added a little bit of white as I went over, and then I have my one where I added a little bit of gray and a little bit of black. Now what you'll find with the black is black really quickly overwhelms every color. In fact, it is not uncommon for your last column here, the 50% black, to appear all black. That's totally fine. So if it looks that way, that's okay. You're not doing it wrong. Black is just that strong. So keep that in mind as we go forward, that when you need black, you need very little of it. And hope that helps.